On August 9th, 1988, the hockey world was shaken to its core when the unthinkable happened. Wayne Gretzky was traded from the Edmonton Oilers to the Los Angeles Kings. But while this monumental move sent shockwaves through the league, it also had devastating consequences for another player, Jimmy Carson. In this video, we'll take a look at how this trade not only altered the landscape of professional hockey, but also completely derailed Carson's promising career. Jimmy Carson was always going to be an NHL star. Even from a young age, he seemed like a future superstar. Growing up playing for the Detroit CompuWare and being coached by Réal Turcotte, the grandfather of Alex Turcotte, he dominated the competition. In the 1983-84 season, Carson led the league in goals and points, with 85 goals and 159 points. Carson said in an interview with LA Kings Insider that Réal Turcotte was the first to tell him that he can play in the NHL one day. Although he was only 12 at the time, he said that everybody around him knew he was going to be something special. Carson would go on to play junior hockey with the Verdun Junior Canadiens of the QMJHL and would continue to find success. Throughout his 137 career QMJHL games, he scored a very impressive 114 goals and 269 points. He was over a point per game his draft year as well, which secured his spot as a top prospect. After winning QMJHL Rookie of the Year, the QMJHL Best Professional Prospect, and being a QMJHL All-Star, almost everybody in the hockey world knew about Jimmy Carson and what he had the potential to do in the NHL. With all this on his draft resume, the LA Kings were more than happy to use their second overall pick in the 1986 draft to pick up the high-scoring centerman. Coming into the NHL, expectations were high for the young centerman, and he needed to prove that he deserved this hype. And that he definitely did. Throughout his 80-game-long rookie campaign, Carson scored 37 goals and 79 points, just missing the point-per-game mark, but making the All-Rookie team. Carson finished third in Calder Trophy voting, finishing only behind the future Hall of Famer Luc Robitaille and the future Vezina winner Ron Hextall. He would go on to represent Team USA in the World Championships, finishing with 5 points in 10 games. Jimmy Carson followed up his successful rookie season with an even more successful year. In the 1988 season, Carson played another 80 games, this time smashing the point-per-game mark with 107, 55 of those being goals. The Kings didn't have any playoff success that year, losing to the Flames in the first round. However, Carson proved that he was a top NHL player, scoring 5 goals and 8 points in 5 games in the playoffs. He looked like he was going to become a future star with the Kings for many years to come. At least it looked like that until August 9th, 1988, maybe the most important day in hockey history. This was the day of the league's shattering trade known as The Trade. The LA Kings sent over Jimmy Carson along with Martin Gelinas, 3 first-round picks, and $15 million to the Oilers in exchange for Mark Krushelnyski, Marty McSorley, and none other than the great one, Wayne Gretzky. Everybody was focused on Gretzky and Gretzky only in this trade, who continued to terrorize the league, but no one knew the insane negative impact this trade would have on the career of Jimmy Carson. The pressure was on now for Carson, as he needed to live up to the expectations that he was going to be the Oilers' replacement for Gretzky. Although he was nowhere near Gretzky, he was still a superstar, scoring 49 goals and 100 points throughout 80 games. Despite only scoring 5 less goals than Gretzky and finishing top 10 in league points, Oilers fans were not happy because he just wasn't Gretzky. The pressure and an undeserved hate was starting to get to Carson, and he was starting to have enough of it. Carson started the 1990 season with a solid 3 points in the first 3 games. However, in the 4th game of the season, disaster struck. He was having an off game and was actually benched in the 3rd period of a 3-3 tie against the Boston Bruins. No one thought too much of this and thought he would come back for the next game back to normal. But for Carson, this was the breaking point for him. The next morning, he called his agent and told him that he had enough. He made it clear that he never wanted to play another game for the Edmonton Oilers and would demand a trade shortly after. The Oilers would grant his wishes as they sent him to his hometown team, the Detroit Red Wings. Carson would play the rest of the season along with the next 3 with the Red Wings. He definitely wasn't a bad player by any means with the Red Wings, but he was never a point-per-game player with the Red Wings with 202 points in 240 games. He was really close to the point-per-game mark in 1993 with 51 points in 52 games, but he couldn't get his game back to the level it was before. After not living up to the expectations in Detroit, Carson would be sent back to the LA Kings as part of the Paul Coffey trade. Carson was going back to the team that he performed best with and was hoping to reignite his career and become the star he once was. But it's safe to say that Carson did not return to his former self on the Kings, as he would only play 59 more games with them, recording 33 points. After this disappointing return to LA, the Kings decided to trade him back to Canada as he was off to play for the Vancouver Canucks. He would play the second half of the 1994 season with the Canucks. Throughout the 34 games with them, he only scored 17 points. In a last-ditch effort to save his NHL career, he signed with the Hartford Whalers to try to get his game back, at the age of 27, which should have been his prime. Carson would only play 49 games with the Oilers, recording 20 points before leaving the NHL for good to play internationally. He would play in the NLA for 13 games and the IHL for 67 games, scoring 7 and 61 points in their respective leagues. And at the young age of 30, the once promising player retired from professional hockey and hung up the skates for good. So what happened to Carson? Well, it all started with the Gretzky trade. After being traded to the Kings, he had to live up to the expectations of the replacement for the Great One. The pressure simply got to him and he couldn't handle the stress of those expectations. He was also traded a lot as a young star, which definitely takes a toll on someone. Well, now you've heard one side of the trade, now all you need is the other half. Click on the video on the screen to see what made Wayne Gretzky so good.